video explains our experience with trying to make sense of the whole Turkish cell phone system, or cep telephone as it's called there. As non-citizens of Turkey, we have run into a lot of barriers when going beyond being a one-time tourist. If you plan on returning to Turkey, then this video is for you. If you plan on buying a place in Turkey, then this is a must-watch. If you only plan on going once, although not as important, this is still worth a watch. Besides, you'll love Turkey so much, you'll want to return like I did. There's a few simple recommendations about getting a SIM card in Turkey. Don't buy in airports or very touristy areas. You'll pay double or more. Don't lose the PIN number for the SIM card or you'll end up locked out of your phone. Make sure to inquire about getting a couple of security questions to access the phone number account. More on this later. For those on extended stays or returning to Turkey, you'll find this interesting. Here's a little background behind why your phone dies after a certain amount of usage on Turkish providers. Back a few years ago, the Turkish cell phone shops had such a markup, nearly double everywhere else, on their phones, that Turkish people started going on phonecations to Georgia and other places to buy phones at half the price of Turkey. Plus, treat their family to a few days holiday in an exotic place. This practice became epidemic and the cell phone shops in Turkey started going under due to lack of business. Soon the government started getting a massive amount of complaints about this, and as the Turkish government is one that actually listens to their people, decided to make a foreign-bought phone become inoperable in Turkey. It's easy to do, as every phone has an IMEI number that is unique. And even if you keep buying Turkish SIM cards, the phone will stop working in Turkey after 90 days. Some have been saying 120 days, but we haven't seen any evidence of it, and I wouldn't trust that information. Even if you are a Turk, but your phone hasn't been registered in Turkey, usually by import, it will stop working. Years ago, you could register your foreign phone, but now the cost of registration has skyrocketed to as much as a new iPhone. So your phone is out regardless. It will still work with your SIM card from back home, but be prepared to pay the hefty fees charged by your provider. While in Turkey, you can get up to 3 SIM cards or ESIMs at a time. But beware, it's not all that simple. Being uninformed and confused about this is a very stressful and taxing experience, and I hope to alleviate some of you from this so you won't have to go through what we did. Exploring a new and exotic country is supposed to be fun and enjoyable after all. Here's a sequence of events that has happened with myself and my partner Gina over the last 3 years. The rules in Turkey change frequently, so by the time you see this, some of it might not be true. As we are not residents of Turkey, we must also rely on the cell system for all our internet, so it's quite important that we have something that works. So when you get a SIM card, it is tagged onto your passport number, which is how all 3 Turkish carriers keep track of your status. This is mine, and this is Gina's. A passport can have up to 3 SIM cards attached to it, and your non-Turkish phone can be used up to 90 days, which is in 30-day steps. So if you are in Turkey for 31 days, then you'll have 60 days deducted at the time. The first time I went to Turkey, I was alone. I went in September and October 2022 for a paragliding SIV course. I was only there for about a month, so purchased a Turkcell tourist package. I bought it in a touristy area, so I paid lots. The next time, my partner and I both went. It was almost a year later, but my SIM card record on my passport was still likely active for a few days, even though, of course, it wouldn't have worked, as the plan was only 30 days or so. At this point, I'm not sure how many days my phone had left in it before it died, but evidence later suggested it had been reset back to 90. Gina also got a SIM card for her phone and also one for her tablet, which even though is only data, counts as a SIM card. so she used up 2 of her 3, leaving 1 open. After my original SIM card expired, I had 2 openings again. This is one oddity that seems to be true. Even though the SIM was no good after 30 days, it remained active for a whole year, and the phone number can't be released. This is because the account was not cancelled by me in a Turkcell store. This is where difficulties began, unbeknownst to us at the time. We went back to Turkey again to buy a place 5 months after we had left in 2023, and Gina started getting notices that her phone was about to die after the 90 days limit. Yet I didn't. Mine said I have 90 days again. She therefore bought a cheap old Turkish registered iPhone to continue having internet while we were there. I got another SIM card and used it until we left in May on my Canadian phone. Then it hit on our return to Turkey in September 2024. In Istanbul airport, Gina decided she wanted her phone to work before we got onto the next plane to our new home, and her passport was no good for a SIM card. So we used my passport, which obviously still had 1 more SIM card left. I didn't know it at the time, but I wouldn't be able to get a SIM card for myself. The SIM that had expired in October 2023 was still active, as was the one from April to May. The local Turkcell told me these 2 and the new one Gina was using was preventing me from getting another SIM card on my passport, as all 3 are still active, even though they're expired. They told me no security questions had been entered, so there was no way to access the accounts. Period. I would have to wait until October 12th before the one from last year became free, so I waited, and still it wasn't inactive. The reason was likely because I had paid for a package that was longer than the time that we were in Turkey, so I had no idea when it opened up. I went out to the coast to do some flying, but had to register my flights in any remaining restaurant that offers free Wi-Fi without entering a Turkish phone number, which I didn't have. I did find a place, but it was very inconvenient having to go all the way there before and after every flight. Eventually, I'm sure our passports opened back up for a new SIM card, but it was so depressing going into the Cell store and inquiring, plus the language barrier. I even tried a larger Turkcell in Fethiye, thinking being at such a touristy location I could explain the situation to someone that knows English, but no luck. Nobody spoke English. Then just by chance I ran into a Turkish friend. Well, he's an expat. And he overheard me talking to a fellow Canadian about my situation, and he just said, "I can get you one." What a lifesaver that was. I was so happy I bought a newer Turkish registered phone and prepaid for an account for 6 months, so it would still be working when I returned to Turkey in April. I bought him some beers and gave him a hug. He has no idea the amount of stress he threw off my back with that one kind gesture. What a friend. It's sad that we all have to rely on these things. And if you don't have internet these days, you don't exist at all. Everything we do depends on it. I remember traveling in a world before internet, a bigger world where language was a big barrier, but we enjoyed the novelty of each other. And it was so much more relaxing. No phone, no internet. Oh. My Canadian phone did go dead in December, just before we left, by the way. A prepaid account appears to lose its incoming telephone call capability after being off the network for a month or so, but internet and calling is unaffected. I'm not sure why this is, but I'll bet it's terrorist prevention. I hope you've enjoyed this video and are more informed because of it. This is really part 1, and part 2 will be written once we return to Turkey in a few days. I will certainly let you know what happened in this continuing saga. Bye for now.